Our struggles and losses are real, and they bring us to a crossroads where we must make a critical choice. When we face suffering, it's crucial to recognize that it can lead us toward redemption. We have to confront our pain, not shy away from it. We can choose to step through the gate of resentment. This path leads to vengeance, self-destruction, and ultimately harm to others. Or we can choose to walk through the gate of forgiveness, which leads to grace and healing. The path we choose will define not only our future, but also our character and the legacy we leave behind. The pain you feel is genuine and the hurt is undeniable, but the decision on how to respond to this pain lies within you. Will you harbor bitterness and seek revenge? Will you hold on to grudges or will you let them go? Will you nurture your pain or will you let it starve and wither? The choice is yours alone. In the face of adversity, we often discover our true selves, and this is a moment where you can choose to rise above the pain and embrace a path of forgiveness. It is within your power to release the bitterness. The fact that you are here today suggests that you have already made a choice to walk through the gate of forgiveness. You have chosen grace, mirroring the example set by Christ on the cross. In the face of adversity, we often discover our true selves, and this is a moment where you can choose to rise above the pain and embrace a path of forgiveness. It is within your power to release the bitterness. The fact that you are here today suggests that you have already made a choice to walk through the gate of forgiveness. You have chosen grace, mirroring the example set by Christ on the cross. He endured immense suffering and felt utterly abandoned, an experience many of us can relate to on some level. His journey through pain and betrayal teaches us that even in our darkest moments, we have the capacity for compassion and forgiveness. Jesus may not have experienced every specific pain we go through, but he understands suffering profoundly. He knows what it means to hurt, to feel pain, to be alone, betrayed, and to suffer deeply. Instead of fleeing from your suffering, turn towards God. Run to him for comfort and strength. Embrace the process of healing, which often requires facing your pain head on and allowing yourself to feel it deeply before you can move past it. There comes a moment when we must decide how to perceive those causing our suffering. Jesus chose to look upon his persecutors with compassion and forgiveness, which opened the gates of heaven for us all. This path is available to us as well. By choosing to see others through the eyes of compassion, we open our hearts to a deeper understanding of their struggles and motivations, which can lead to a more profound sense of empathy and forgiveness. I wish for each of you and for myself to embrace this path of grace. Despite the severity of our individual sufferings, there is always someone who has endured more. Your presence here today is a testament to your strength and your journey towards grace. It's a recognition that forgiveness is not just an act, but a continuous journey that requires courage, humility, and a deep connection with the divine. When we view others through the eyes of Jesus, we begin to understand their true needs. It enables us to feel compassion for those who have hurt us. You might think it's impossible to forgive someone who has caused you great pain, but remember Jesus on the cross praying for forgiveness for those who crucified him, saying, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do." Even in his agony, Jesus showed compassion. This profound act of forgiveness serves as a powerful reminder that no matter how great the pain inflicted upon us, we have the capacity to forgive. The Apostle Paul reminds us that our attitude should mirror that of Christ Jesus. Forgiveness begins with a conscious decision. Base your forgiveness on what God has done for you rather than on what the person has done to you. Reflecting on God's forgiveness towards us helps us extend the same forgiveness to others. We forgive because God forgave us. When we grasp the magnitude of our own forgiveness, how can we not forgive others? This realization brings a sense of peace and liberation, as we are no longer bound by the chains of resentment and anger. Jesus' teachings in Matthew 18 illustrate this point. He likens the kingdom of heaven to a king settling accounts with his servants. One servant owed an astronomical sum, far beyond his ability to repay. When the servant begged for patience, the master took pity, canceled the debt, and let him go. However, this servant then refused to show the same mercy to a fellow servant who owed him a much smaller amount. When the master learned of this, he punished the unmerciful servant. This parable teaches us the importance of mercy. Just as the master forgave the servant's enormous debt, we should forgive others' smaller debts against us. Holding on to unforgiveness is like imprisoning ourselves. It's not the debt itself, but our refusal to forgive that binds us. This parable challenges us to look inward and assess how we handle forgiveness. Are we like the unforgiving servant, holding on to petty grievances while forgetting the immense grace we have received? Consider the vastness of God's forgiveness towards you. Is it a small, manageable sum or an overwhelming, unpayable debt? Often the offenses we hold on to, though significant, are minor compared to the debt we owe to God. Recognizing this can shift our perspective, allowing us to see our grievances in the light of divine grace. This shift in perspective is crucial for personal growth and spiritual maturity. You might argue that some offenses are too big to forgive, especially when they involve serious abuses. In the grand scheme of eternity, even these are like a day's wage compared to the vastness of God's grace. Jesus teaches us to let go because holding on to these grievances imprisons us in our own bitterness. Forgiveness frees us from this prison, allowing us to live a life unburdened by past hurts. Forgiveness isn't about fairness, it's about grace. It's not fair to let someone off the hook for their wrongdoings, but forgiveness is the right thing to do. It's what God asks of us, to let go because He has let go of our debts. By doing so, we emulate our Father in heaven, loving with kindness and compassion. This act of letting go transforms us, making us more like the divine and bringing us closer to true inner peace. As long as we cling to our grudges, our hands are not free to receive God's grace. We often fail to grasp the true essence of grace. We think we understand it, but when faced with practical applications, we struggle. The concept of grace is easy to appreciate in theory, but challenging to implement in real life. It requires us to look beyond our immediate feelings and consider the larger picture of divine love and compassion. Jesus provided another parable to illustrate this concept. He described a landowner who hired workers throughout the day, from early morning until the 11th hour. At the end of the day, he paid all the workers the same wage, regardless of how long they had worked. Those who had worked all day grumbled, feeling it was unfair. The landowner responded that he had done no wrong, as they had agreed to the wage. He chose to be generous to those who worked less, asking if they begrudged his generosity. This parable highlights the kingdom principle that the last will be first and the first will be last. It serves as a reminder that God's grace is not limited by human notions of fairness and justice. If this seems unfair, it's because we mistakenly believe we earn our salvation. We begrudge God's generosity when He saves others late in life or in seemingly unequal circumstances. We fail to recognize that salvation and grace are gifts, not wages earned by our efforts. This parable invites us to reflect on our own attitudes towards God's generosity and to cultivate a spirit of gratitude and humility. Some of us might feel we've lived good lives deserving of more grace than those who've made significant mistakes. Yet God's grace is not a reward for good behavior. It's an unearned gift. We should never look down on the grace others receive, regardless of their past. This understanding helps us develop a more compassionate and inclusive perspective, seeing everyone as equally deserving of God's love. Forgiveness frees us from the bondage of sin and the enemy's snares. It's not about fairness, but about embracing the generosity of God. We should be grateful for the grace extended to us and extend the same to others. This act of extending grace not only benefits others, but also brings us immense peace and spiritual fulfillment. Ultimately, none of us want what's truly fair, as it would lead to a destiny without Christ. It's through God's abounding grace that we even have the chance to know Him. So let us choose forgiveness, grace, and the path that leads to salvation. By doing so, we align ourselves with the divine purpose and open our hearts to the transformative power of love and compassion. Embracing forgiveness and grace transforms our lives in profound ways. It allows us to break free from the chains of resentment and anger, enabling us to live more fully and joyfully. This transformation is a journey, one that requires continuous effort and a deep connection with our faith. As we walk this path, we not only heal ourselves, but also become beacons of light and hope for others. Imagine a world where everyone chose the path of forgiveness. The ripple effect of such a choice would be extraordinary, creating a community built on love, understanding, and compassion. Each act of forgiveness has the potential to inspire others, creating a chain reaction of grace that can transform entire communities. This vision may seem idealistic, but it starts with individual choices that each of us can make every day. The journey towards forgiveness is not easy. It requires us to confront our deepest wounds and to extend compassion to those who may not deserve it. But it is through this difficult process that we find true freedom and peace. Each step we take towards forgiveness brings us closer to the divine, helping us to embody the love and grace that God has shown us. In conclusion, let us remember that suffering, while painful, can lead us to salvation. By facing our pain and choosing forgiveness, we open our hearts to grace. This journey requires courage and faith, but it is one that leads to true freedom and spiritual fulfillment. May we all choose the path of forgiveness and grace, transforming our lives and the lives of those around us. May we become vessels of God's love, spreading compassion and understanding wherever we go.